Good evening and welcome to the April 22nd Board of Selectmen meeting. We're going to begin with the citation. And the citation, you want to come up? And Joshua, what's the correct pronunciation of your last name?
Arns.
Arns. Good to meet you. Go ahead and have a seat there.
Nice to see you.
Scott, thank you for coming up for this.
Yeah, no problem. I wanted to just say what a great job we did, and the benches are beautiful, and they did great work.
Yeah, for the people who didn't see the last meeting, there was, Joshua had put together a scout initiative in working towards your Eagle Scout.
Yep.
And part of that involves community outreach and community work, and you decided to make this your project. And what it was adding a couple of benches for the bus riders, right? So they'd have a place to sit.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Scott. I want to let you go.
All right, so what he did is, we found a few locations for him. He offered to put in some benches, so we figured on two of them. We put one up at Shaw's, and we put one in front of the high school. So he went out, they bought all the supplies they need. The highway department donated some concrete to it for
Good.
him.
Yeah, I saw that.
Help him out, and his father and him came by with their car, and they loaded it up, and I didn't think it was gonna make it home, but they got it out. So, he worked on it for a few weekends, and he, came to us, said it was done, we went and saw it, it was an absolutely great job.
Yeah. So for your benefit, we were given pictures of the effort, and so we have the pictures in front of us. And all I can say is great work. That looks like something you'd have to go out and purchase at a very high-end store or industrial supply. And so not only does it, it defrays costs for the town. So clearly there's a benefit financially to the town. But on top of that, I think that the community spirit that's put behind it and what's behind it is more important than offsetting financials, right? As a scout, you know about leadership, you know about community service, you know about commitment to your community, and you live it through examples like this. I think these are things that you'll be proud of when you go by. I think your family's proud of you already as they go by these and they see what a great young man you've become. And so I just wanted to, on behalf of the board, thank you for this. It was Selectman Kincaid who mentioned that we should have you here when it was discussed at the last meeting. So I'll go out to the members before we read the citation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, Josh, I feel like this project's taken you quite a while from start to finish. You had this idea a long time ago. I remember speaking to you about it. I just want to say thank you. I'm very proud of you. I know you come from a terrific family, and they're here and supportive of you as well. So I have not seen the one up at Shaw's up close, even though I've driven by it. The high school one, I actually was able to park and go see and everything. So very impressive. And Scott, thanks for making this happen and get it done for them, because it's a good thing, and we get to again show you off a little bit and let people know good things are happening in the town of Milford, and it's because of future leaders like you. So I very much appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mike?
Josh, I always talk about this, just another great example of Eagle Scout work. When I was on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, every year we would give away a scholarship. In 1 year, there were 12 applicants for the one scholarship, and 11 of them were Eagle Scouts. And the projects, I still talk about it today, the projects that they did for their Eagle Scout, one of them I still remember was a young man, I should say, from Franklin, whose elementary school teacher reached out to him. Somebody had donated some land behind the school. She wanted to do a small outside nature's classroom. He single-handedly built the steps with flower planters and all the way up this hill so the children could get up there, because it get slippery. And I look at this, to Selectman Buckley's point, this looks like professionally, like Scott went and bought them and had them installed. I mean, it's just amazing. But again, it's just another example of the importance of Girl Scouting, Cub Scouting, Eagle Scouts, all those different programs, because it's all about leadership. It's all about leadership. And, I read a great article the other day, and it said managers manage things. Leaders do the right thing. And that's an example of what this. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mike. And now I'd like to give you your citation and read it to you. And Joshua, just on behalf of the members of the Board of Selectmen, William Buckley, William Kincaid, and Mike Walsh, I'd like to recognize your commitment and hard work in constructing the benches for the 2 stops used by riders of the Milford bus route. And on behalf of Milford, the people of Milford, the Selectmen extend their very best wishes and express their hope of good fortune and continued success in all endeavors, given this day, 22nd of April, 2019. Congratulations. I'll shake your dad.
Thank you, thank you.
Congratulations.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Well done.
And next, we have a proclamation for Arbor Day for the Girl Scouts. Any Girl Scouts here?
Yeah, that's me.
Girl Scout representatives, okay.
Always a Girl Scout.
All right, we'll give you, yeah, come on up, Chuck. We'll give you the microphone and talk about what it is that you'd like to do. I have it in front of me, but that's all right. I want to give for the benefit of folks that might be watching at home, hearing exactly what we're trying to accomplish and why.
Sure. Thanks for having us. My name is Brenda Wheelock. I am a troop leader for a 7th and 8th grade Girl Scout troop in Milford. We have 13 girls in the troop. And for maybe the last year and a half, we've been working with Mr. Renault and the Rotary Club to plan out, develop a plan for, not Arbor Day, but for Tree City USA. And so there are certain criteria that we have to meet that Chuck can talk about, but one of them is to make sure that we keep our accreditation up to date, meaning we have a proclamation every year. So now, like last year was the first time we received the proclamation for Arbor Day, which is the last Friday in April every year. But now this year it's kind of administrative. But the good news is, and I think you've talked about this already, is that we are, Milford is now a Tree City, member of Tree City USA, which is really cool. So that's awesome. So we'll be giving away trees again on Saturday. And then we have a plan for planting some more trees along the bike path. And if you walk the bike path, last June we planted the area's only dawn redwood tree,
Oh, nice.
which is really cool, down behind Benjamin Moore. So that
Where are
was
you
really
going to be
awesome.
giving, just again, for the benefit?
Yeah,
that we're
sure.
giving away the trees?
We're hoping that we will give them away part of the Citizens for Milford Beautification Day.
Yeah.
Like to the
In
right
that
of it.
parking lot?
Yes, so if they're watching right now, it's a surprise to them because I haven't reached out to them yet.
Ah, okay.
But I'm pretty sure that they might not say no to a Girl Scout. So, so we'll just give away the trees
a
there
public
again.
parking
I know
lot.
it's a public park. I know it was successful last year. It will be successful again this year. The families and community really liked receiving the trees. It was
Yeah, and
pretty
so
cool.
for those that want to plant trees in their yard that are part of a larger event of Girl Scouts helping the community, that's a great place to show up. Again, for those who want to contribute to the beautification of Milford and help pick up.
Good timing.
That's this Saturday. And
In the lot across from Sacred
Sacred
Heart
Heart.
Church.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think
So
it's
8 to noon, somewhere
yeah,
around
8
that
to noon.
time. So if
Okay.
you're doing the beautification day. But Chuck, did you want to share some of the statistics? Because
Yeah.
it's kind of nice for you to know.
It's good to know. We are among elite group out of the 351 cities and towns now. There are only 87 that have the Tree City USA status.
Okay.
So that's very good for us. About 54.8% of the population of Massachusetts lives in a Tree City USA. So that's another plus for us.
Okay.
And overall in the state, last year, they spent $27.65 million on tree care, the various cities and towns. That's a fair amount of money.
Certainly is.
And it shows. It shows. We're working to, continue planting the trees and beautify Milford as much as we can.
So, my pitch for this is we lose trees to development continuously. And development is a natural thing. I don't want to make developers bad people. If it weren't for developers, I wouldn't have a home to live in. At the same time, hopefully folks can participate in days like today And small contributions, small things like planting a tree in your yard, another tree in your yard, and nurturing that to help offset the ozone issues, depleting issues, and to create a better environment for all of us. And I think it's just a neat thing for young children to see the fruits of their labor, see them plant something small, and to watch it get bigger, and they can talk about that when they're older. But it's with that in mind that I'll read the proclamation.
Sure.
Whereas the Commonwealth of Massachusetts celebrates Arbor Day on the last Friday of April of each year, and whereas on April 26, 2019, Massachusetts will observe another Arbor Day, giving its citizens an opportunity to plant trees and celebrate the gifts that community trees give all year long, and whereas the town of Milford recommits itself to the community streetscapes and forest and seeks to become a better steward of its community trees, and whereas the Milford establishes trees as a priority for the town and will endeavor to make good decisions about their care and management. And now therefore be it resolved that we, William D. Buckley, William E. Kincaid Jr., and Michael K. Walsh, as selectmen of the town of Milford, proclaim Arbor Day, April 26, 2019, to be a day of celebration in our town. On this day, we shall be thoughtful of the role trees play in improving the quality of our neighborhoods, streets, yards, and lives, and shall respect our trees as a great natural resource that contributes to the life cycle, or cycle of life, rather. In witness, therefore, set our hands in the day and caused the seal of town of Milford to be affixed as 22nd day of April in the year of our Lord 2019. William Buckley, Chairman. William Kincaid Jr., Member. Michael K. Walsh, Member. So,
Cool. Thank you.
congratulations and thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Do you need that?
Thanks.
No, that's, they can take that. You can,
Thank you.
Thanks for getting something.
you're welcome, no problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice work again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've met with the Girl Scouts and now Boy Scout, so we're going to go to the signing of the warrant.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll also vote in the affirmative. That's unanimous approval for the April 8th, 2019 minutes.
So moved.
And there are two sets of minutes, both the regular meeting and, let me see, executive. So we moved on both?
Do you want me to, I can certainly do both. I move to
Yeah.
approve both the regular minutes and executive session for April 8th.
Okay.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
And that's unanimous. Okay, now we have invitation to speak, and we have two members that would like to speak. Come on up. Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, I don't know.
Good evening, guys. How are you today?
Good evening.
Good.
It's very rare that Ray and I get a chance to be together at the same spot at the same time, and I feel like if I'm not utilizing my time efficiently, if I have 10 minutes to spare, I gotta be doing something. So we're here for an invitation to speak. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on where we are with the parade committee. We're starting to get a lot of donors in now. A lot of people are starting to donate money. We're getting a lot of sponsors back in. And we're getting a lot of the events that we had last year. So,
And this is 4th of July parade
4th of
for the
July parade,
folks who
yes.
aren't sure at home. Okay.
we just, like I said, we wanted to stop by, give you a quick heads up on what we're doing. We're working on fundraising now. We got some ideas that we're pawning out there, not really sure what we're gonna do, but
Yeah.
we'll make it happen. And Ray's working with the Celebrate Milford too. We're working with them. We'll have a booth down there promoting it, and we're doing all the social media and everything like that as well.
How can this board help? It's just a question I want to,
I think your support.
you've got
is
that.
Fantastic, yeah. I mean, it's just you allowing us to take the reins and put this event on last year was amazing. To be able to work for the town and produce what we produced with our committee and the help of the town, of course,
Right,
was, was
absolutely.
amazing.
Takes a lot of people, doesn't it?
It does. And for 7 people on the committee, it was,
Right.
I don't mind saying, I thought it was pretty amazing what we did.
Yeah.
And we had a lot
7
of great
people.
volunteers.
That's good.
And I think a lot of people sat back last year wondering if we were going to fail that.
It was
first
real.
year,
Yeah.
Not getting involved. So we think this year is going to be a lot bigger.
Great.
Now that we had a successful year.
Right.
Well, look, my contribution from a member of the Board of Selectmen is a public service announcement saying, what greater thing could we be doing but celebrating the birth of our nation? And, you were two people that brought this idea forward and wanted to, move it forward, bring back a part of our town tradition that hadn't been done in a very long time. So just want to say thank you. But I don't know if you wanted to go on or if there was more that you
One of
wanted
the
to talk
things that
about.
we were going to ask, and again, I know this is an invitation to speak, and we're
Yeah.
not on the agenda or anything, but we have time to kill. So you guys generously gave us $2,000 last year, and that helped out great. Not knowing what we were going into and how expensive things are, we did manage, and we brought a good product to the town. This year, we looked at some things that we kind of really want to do to give that other little bit of an awe factor. And if you guys would generously give us $5,000 this year, that would help out a lot for us.
We'd like it to continue to grow.
Right,
And
and
build.
I don't think we're gonna come every year looking for $3,000
No.
extra either. I think we didn't know what it entailed, what things cost at that point. And I gotta be honest with you, we can't get a marching band in our parade, so.
Without paying for one.
Without paying for one, that's what we feel is a big part of a parade, is a good, solid marching band that's just loud, and we reach out to the schools and alumni, and it's 4th of July, no one's around. We get it, but we're working. So I think maybe a little bit more in that fund that we get, and I know it's budget season and everything, but that would help us out. That was like one of the only things I think we come across.
Well, it's the right time to ask. We're in the middle of budget season, and so we're working through our budgets. Yeah, and the only other thing in the future I'd tell you is, I don't want to communicate to the communities through some awkward way, through invitation to speak. You guys have standing. I would ask you to encourage you to schedule, to get yourself on the agenda.
No, yeah, that's
So the
usually our
board
plan.
members are aware ahead of time, and the community knows you have that standing.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that that's an open invitation.
Right, yeah, we weren't looking for answers tonight, and I
Yeah.
know how this goes.
Well, what we'll do is
We'll certainly come back.
we'll defer to Rick. No, anytime. You're welcome anytime. But we'll defer right now, not ask Rick to comment, because I know everybody's getting caught by surprise, but we'll see what we can do through the budget cycle, and as you know, I at least look to Joey, there's a lot of people that we have to satisfy in going through the vetting process of our budgets and town departments.
Totally understand.
So,
Anything is appreciated. to be
yeah,
honest.
no worries. And so we'll again look at that request, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, like I said, we just time to kill, so if he has an update.
Okay. Thank you for the update.
Thank you. And also, I've got your invitations as well. They've been sitting in my car for weeks.
Thanks, Joey.
So please feel free. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. We'll do it again. That was a great event.
Certainly was.
I had a lot of fun. Okay. Anybody else that would like to speak for invitation to speak? Please, Brian. Just for the benefit of the community that's watching at home, and the recording secretary, give your name.
Right. My name is Brian Cole. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 8. I was a Cub Scout for 6 weeks, and then they made me choose between that and baseball.
Okay.
I'm here tonight to talk about the surface water protection zones, the properties that are up for sale.
They're not actually up for sale.
They
Somebody's
were-
made an offer, but they're not up for sale.
About the offer then,
Yeah.
and that's before this board. I appreciate the Arbor Day proclamation that you just read, that this board just read, and the emphasis that was placed on protecting our town's trees and open spaces. I certainly appreciate the requesting more information, talking to Mike Dean tonight, the town.
Town engineer.
Thank you, excuse me. But I would ask the board to err on the side of conservation here, especially for, from what I can tell, there seems to be little obvious benefit to the town. We're talking about, what, $1 per resident is the sales price? And it's important to the work that Brenda and the Girl Scouts are doing to go out and to plant those trees, but you know what they say is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. So I hope the board will err on the side of conservation, like I said, with these properties, and hold on to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you
Brian.
being heard. Okay, with that, there are no public hearings scheduled, so we'll go right to scheduled appointments. We have Pizza 85, transfer of common victualler license. Come on up to the front desk, front seats, rather. And if you could just introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Ehab Shahada.
Yes. You're on the application.
All right, I'm purchasing the store. I've been in the business for almost 20 years, so we know exactly what we're doing. And by the way, I'm really nervous now. I don't like to speak
Don't be,
about-
don't be, please. We should be the least intimidating folks you know.
Yeah, so we purchased the business to serve the people of Milford, and we do a better job.
Okay.
And we'll make some money. That's right.
Well, everybody wins when businesses do that, so for the benefit of the public, I'll now read for the application. This is an attempt to transfer an existing license, a common victular license. The business name is Pizza 85, 130 Cedar Street, Milford, Mass. The name of the applicant, I'm going to ask for help with your last name, Ehab?
Shahada.
Shihada? And home address is in, let's see, Wayland?
Wayland, yeah.
Yeah, and so along with that, when we ask the applicant to fill out an application, we also go out to the department heads. And the building commissioner has indicated there's no violations and no issues. We also look to say town planner is looking, see if there's any change of actual use. There is not. The tax collector indicates there is no outstanding taxes on the property. Town treasurer, there are no liens. Fire chief has no concerns, and police chief as well. Board of Health, no concerns. And so with that, you've indicated how many years of experience. It's typically a question that we'll ask.
I
Do you
have
see
experience
anything?
about 20 years, so.
Okay, do you see any other changes coming forward with the business? Menu or?
I'm starting doing the menus,
Okay.
digital menus inside, doing some renovation in the store, adding more items to the menu to get variety of food and drinks and all that.
Okay.
So
I'll go to the members of the board to see if there's any comments. Mr. Kincaid?
No, I don't have any questions or comments.
No.
Neither do I, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Just congratulations.
thank you so much.
Yeah, so if there's a motion,
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of the existing license, which is a common victular for Pizza 85.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll also vote in favor and wish you a lot of luck in your future business.
Thank you so much.
All right? You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Central Street Resale, transfer of secondhand license. Come on up.
Welcome.
The last gentleman said he was nervous, but he smiled all the way through, so you can smile. You're requesting a transfer of an existing license, a secondhand antique dealer license, and the property name is Central Street Resale. Go ahead and let us know what your plans are.
Right now, I just have it the way that it is. I've been bringing in a lot more consigners. I've opened up to having consigners bring in prom dresses. I have a few consigners that have brought in maternity wear. I know that maternity clothing is very expensive. So we started that, and we're just selling clothes at resale prices instead of retail. We have a lot of name brand items.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask you to introduce yourself, but just so the board knows and for the matter of records, we know who we're talking to.
I'm Michelle Crowley.
Okay, you're the applicant.
And I'm Bree Crowley, her daughter.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, and what other types of things have been ongoing staple of the secondhand license business?
Oh, we have men's, women's, children's, infants' clothing,
Okay,
some toys, you know, a few
okay.
items, pocketbooks, accessories.
And I also think it's important to add that secondhand and thrift stores shops are environmentally friendly. So they kind of cut out the fast fashion industry, which can be devastating to the climate, and also benefiting low-income families
Okay.
around Milford by selling clothes at low prices. For, say, a mother can't afford a children's jacket, and we're selling them that jacket for a cheaper price.
Okay, that's a great point. Thank you for those points. And so again, it's Central Street Resale. The name of the applicant is Michelle Crowley. She lives at Dilla Street. Go through your mailing address, but applicant seeks to change the hours to Monday through Sunday, 9 to 6. And what was the baseline? It was 11 to 5. Okay, so looking to change it from 9 to 6. Again, we seek information from our department heads as we talk about licensing or transferring business licenses. Building commissioner indicates no issues, no concerns. Town planner, no change of actual use, so no concerns. Town treasurer identifies there are no outstanding liens. Tax collector indicates that there's a outstanding personal property tax of $19.97. I'm going to take it that you're not the landowner.
No.
Okay. So we'll seek compliance with the tax collection through the landowner, if it's okay with the board. And this is not a question for the folks who are renting there.
I do think that that might be the tax on the property that's in the store.
That's correct. It's personal property.
Oh, it's personal. You're right. Now that I read it, it's personal property tax
So I'll have to
before the
check and see. I don't know how that worked with the previous owner.
Okay.
But if I have to pay it, I'll just. come
Yeah,
in
it's one of the
tomorrow and
things
pay
that
it.
it's one of the things that, as stewards of the town money, before we make transfers, what we'd like to do is clear the books from prior owners. So if it's the prior owner, please have that discussion, and we can just make it contingent upon payment of personal property taxes, if that's all right with the board. We don't have to make it contingent.
Yeah, I don't want to hold her up for $19.97. It's paid eventually.
So there are no other comments or questions. Police chief, fire chief, no, let's see. No, I'm sorry. The fire chief indicates that recommend installing a smoke detector since there's no system in the building. And that is something we should probably take up with the landlord. Okay, so if the landlord wants to continue to rent it, he should be making the appropriate fire life safety changes. Okay. So with that, I'll go to the members of the board, see if there's any questions or see if there's a motion. First is, are there any questions?
There are not. I don't have any questions. Wish you luck.
Neither do I, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of the secondhand antique dealer for Central Street Resale to Michelle Crowley, acknowledging the change of hours, Monday through Sunday, 9 to 6. I wish you the best of luck. Just have that smoke detector.
Okay, so we have a motion?
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and I'd also make that unanimous and echo the comments of my colleague and wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you.
Have a good night, ladies.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
Thank you. Good to meet you, Michelle.
Good luck.
We had originally scheduled finance director, but we were able to cover the topics that we had questions with in an earlier meeting that was posted, by the way.
Excuse me.
But there are some articles within the upcoming warrant that we should discuss. And Rick, could you go over or at least pull out the numbers for the
Yes, the first one.
cemetery and police
Yes,
collective bargaining?
Collective bargaining for the police is Article 22.
Okay, middle of the top of the page.
The
All right.
article for the Milford Cemetery collective bargaining is Article 17, bottom of the page, kind of, or the bottom of the Selectmen articles.
Yes.
Article 15, Article 16, funds for expenses for the Police Chief Selection Review Committee. And then Article 13, the water company funds for legal and consulting services. Those would be the four that the board has not voted on to date.
Okay, and we've discussed either through executive session when it came to the water company, preparations for legal fees and legal strategy. Some of that has to do, obviously involves cost. So I can do it any way the board would like to do this. So any topic that the board members would like to discuss and provide rationale or ask questions, we're happy to do that. Or motion, whatever the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, and I'll include all four, but I also want to, just so for the public watching, just know the dollar amount in the title.
Sure.
So I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen support Article 13, which is for the water company for legal and consulting services of $285,000. Article 22, to fund the collective bargaining for the police of $156,441. Article 16, to fund the expenses for the Police Chief Selection Review Committee for $50,000. And finally, Article 17, to fund the collective bargaining for the Milford Cemetery employees for $6,500.
And I would second
Open that up for discussion. Mike seconds. Yeah, and so, there are two articles here I'd like to talk about a little bit more, and that's funding of collective bargaining for police and cemetery employees. So we enter into collective bargaining with the unions, not knowing when we're going to close on those discussions. And whenever we do, there's an adjustment within wages and steps. And one of the things we obviously have to do is seek town meeting approval to expend those funds. These are those dollar amounts that we've negotiated in their aggregate for this year. And again, it's $156,441 for the police collective bargaining. Obviously, a bigger organization than what is the Milford Cemetery employees at $6,500. So that's why the board brings those forward. Those negotiations are complete. We now know what the dollar values are, and we're able to tell town meeting about that and seek the funds to make those payments to the employees. So that's what that is. There was a motion, there was a second. I just want to catch up with myself, and I'll make that unanimous. Rick, is there anything else you need relative to the?
I think the board has now covered all of the
Yeah.
Selectmen articles and
Yeah,
any
we
others
have.
that you've discussed. Yep.
All right, very good. Next, we have Maureen Griffin, who is going to discuss hiring policy, starting step wage increases. Maureen, good to see you again.
Oh, you too.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss what the problem is. I'm going to ask Will to do that because Will keeps highlighting the fact that the board gets caught in this conundrum, and I want to
Sure.
go to my colleague.
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. No, this is something that we've had that this board and prior boards, quite honestly, have had a problem with when we have, say, hire someone and can only hire them at a step one rate, and then anything other than that based on like yourself, who has multiple years of experience and should probably be, candidates that end up higher up the steps and lanes. And again, we have to go through this process which holds up sometimes our employees in order to get on the calendar for the next meeting.
Exactly.
And even in the past, we've literally made a decision, I think, less than a week after they had their Thursday meeting or whatever it was back in the day, and all of a sudden we had to wait either another few weeks, a month, or kind of have them have a special meeting, which just proved out to be some difficulty because you don't want to let someone know that they're hired and then tell them that, we'll get back to you in 4 to 6 weeks. People want to know what the offer is and the accurate offer, so.
Yeah, it's created a conundrum where we've had employees working for 3 weeks at one salary, and while we say we would like to have you at this salary to meet your salary requirements, we can't make that offer to you. So we have to start you at this and then go to the personnel board and have a change in salaries. To me, it's silly, it's archaic. I know you're not defending it. It's what you came into. And so I'll let you take over from there. I don't know, Mike, if you have any comments.
I was just going to say, Maureen, it's another example of the benefit that you bring to the community. And you and I have had this discussion, when I first got on the Youth Commission, I used to say, who knows who's doing what? And this is just another example of where you're putting things in line, streamlining things, and making the hiring process, much more professional in the town of Milford. So thank you very much.
Sure. So I agree. It was sort of an awkward process to meet with the candidate and say, well, you're going to start here, we'll try to start you here, but we need approval, and sometime within the next month to 6 weeks or so, we'll let you know. Makes it difficult to get an offer out to a good candidate. So what I'd like to do is sort of flip, you asked us to go back for Rick and I to go
see
back
what
and
we
look
could
at
do to
something.
lean this out,
Right, how
right?
can we clean this up a little bit?
Yeah.
So what we'd like to do is sort of flip the process a little bit. And in the past, the process has been to tell the candidate they'll start at one salary, then another, perhaps, then come to this board for approval to hire that individual, and then at some point in the future, take it to the personnel board to talk about compensation. So I'd like to sort of turn that around. Instead, if we identify a candidate who we think should start anywhere above that first step, we'll call a meeting with the personnel board. So first, Rick, myself, and the department head would meet to agree what we think is a fair and appropriate starting salary. And then at that point, if there's not a personnel board meeting scheduled quickly enough, we'll call a special meeting and have the personnel board approve that starting salary. We can then make an offer to an employee with one salary. It's a contingent offer at this salary based on approval from the Board of Selectmen. So instead of having you come in and approve the hire first and then them the pay, we'll have them approve the pay first and then you approve the hire. At least that way the candidate gets one offer at one rate. It'll be blessed before we even make that offer with a contingent that you are also happy with that hire. And I think that will, one, remove the duplicate effort of our poor payroll folks, putting them in at one salary, then if it gets blessed, they've got to redo it, and they've got to put them in for retro pay. It also makes a more comfortable conversation and a more appropriate one with the candidate.
Okay. And if you need anything from us and you need to speed up that window, please let me know.
I will. So I've already met with the
Let this board
personnel
know.
board and put it, and they were fine with it. They agreed that if their meeting is scheduled too far in the distance, they would all be happy to call a special meeting with the understanding. Because we do need to expedite it. We can't leave these positions vacant. Not only is it detrimental to the town, but the candidates sometimes have multiple offers. And if we could lose our primary candidate if we wait too long.
Yeah, that's a great point, and thank you for keeping us in a competitive advantage. We want to stay in that loop.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add,
Please.
also trying to explain to past candidates, the preferred candidates, by the way, that come to us, that yes, we have the legal authority and by statute as the chief executives of the town to purchase, sell, make millions of dollars, either way, be responsible for all that, but not be able to hire someone at $31.05 over $29.95. So, there's been a lot of questions over the years of, wait a minute, you can't pay me what my minimum salary was in the last job, but you can, spend millions of dollars on infrastructure and handle all the litigation for the town and everything else like that. So I think it's something that we're at least making progress with. I don't necessarily think that quite honestly, that the problem is necessarily 100% fixed, because I think you still have to, you're still, bouncing between boards and everything just to get someone hired. But I do appreciate this because it's, at least we're not mistreating our future employees.
Right, it's
So.
a step in the right direction, and there's actually some Part B and other things that that I'm working on now, and that'll be bringing both to the personnel board and back to this board as well, and getting your approval to sort of take it that one more step to really clean up the process.
Well, it makes sense to go the direction you're going in. It almost seems the other way was backwards.
Yes.
It
It's been
really.
that way since 1959, so I think it's okay to change it up a
Yeah, I
little
think
And I
it
think
makes
just
perfect
everyone's always
sense.
done it that way, and so if you're not aware that there is an alternative, then you just go with what you know.
Just because you've always done it that way doesn't make it right.
It is, as they say, an evolution, not a revolution. And so, over time, we'll get the right things to happen, gain the right cooperation with the right board, so that we're doing the right thing by employees. Because, again, it's all for one purpose, and it's to allow the town to maintain their competitive advantage as a hirer, as an employer, and we want to be competitive in our salary and wages. And if we think there's unique circumstances, we want to, vet those and get those to the right people in a timely manner. So it sounds like you have a very narrow window. However, if the Board of Selectmen is your gate or hurdle, because it looks like it could be now,
Okay.
right? I need you to obviously work with Rick, and
Absolutely.
we'll do what we need to do. If you think we're going to lose somebody, if you think there's reason we should move quicker than what the normal meeting schedule would allow, then I'm sure my colleagues have been in the past willing to, meet on a different time, and we can just post it, meet the, open meeting law requirements, and sit down and have a discussion.
Excellent.
All right.
Great.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Have a good
Is there
night.
anything else, Rick? that
No, I
we
think
had?
we're.
Okay.
Take care.
Maureen, yeah.
Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you.
Next, we have Celebrate Milford Committee update. Come on up. Good to see you again. For the benefit of those at home.
How are you? How are you?
Have a seat, relax. For the benefit of those at home, for the record, just cite your name, give your name.
Joe Soares, part of the
Good to
committee.
see you again.
Kathleen Donovan,
Kathleen,
also part of the committee.
John Crane.
John. All right, so you wanted to approach the board regarding the Celebrate Milford event, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, so this is going to be the fourth Celebrate Milford event. It's turned into an annual event. We always do it the weekend before Memorial Day, and it's worked out nicely. This, I guess, again, year number 4, and nothing's really changed from years past. We've expanded some stuff in the kids zone, added some more attractions for the kids. We're going to kick it off with a parade once again. We've had a record year for vendors.
That's great.
Yeah, we've actually closed it off because
This year, we're hoping for the right weather.
yeah, exactly, right. So, I mean, nothing really changed from the years past, I would say. And one thing that we did, what we're hoping, if it does happen, is we're hoping to get a helicopter there from the National Guard. But, fingers crossed, we don't know if they'll come through. It's all up to them. So,
They don't like giving those away, I guess.
no, I guess they don't.
They're lending them out.
Well, they do have to get their hours in, so if you can catch them and they get it scheduled, those gentlemen and ladies that fly need to get their hours, so a lot of times it will work out.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Weather.
We've had them before in the past show up, I think maybe our
Yeah,
first
the
or second.
first year they showed up with some trucks.
Yeah, they did.
Stuff like that,
My grandkids loved them.
I know.
Yeah.
So let me just say this, for the folks who don't know what Celebrate Milford is, or the event, it's a collective celebration of a lot of members and groups that get together to celebrate the community, create more community pride, more community spirit. It's been a great event year after year, the 4 years it's happened. Last year, we ran into some weather issues, but we're hoping for the benefit of all the volunteers and all the vendors that you get the right weather. Will, I don't know, are you thinking about getting in the dunking booth again?
Yeah, it was wet last year, so I didn't have to do the booth.
All right, so, because I
I
know.
think my booth days might be over.
That-
Or I could bring in a record amount of money this year.
That was a draw. That was a draw. I wanted to throw at that.
You want to go in the booth? Is that what you said?
No, no,
All right.
I heard that.
no, I hurt my hip last week and injury. No, but I just wanted to call out at least the contribution I have towards what I remember, and just a great family day.
Really is.
And so I thank you for being part of it, and I'll turn it over to the members of the committee if they have any questions or comments.
No, I certainly don't have any questions. My only comment is it's been, even last year, getting a little wet. It was a lot of fun. You guys do a ton of work. Obviously, I'm biased. I love you guys. And you all do a ton of work, and just a lot of fun, and just seeing all the kids and all, Caleb's friends. I was just running around, and another opportunity for them to see each other out of school, and just fun to be there with everyone. So
Yeah.
just thanks for doing this. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. It is, the committee members put in a lot of work. Kathy probably answers to like 100 emails a day at this
I
point.
start in
so-
October.
Your free time?
Yeah, in my free time, putting the nursing aside, doing that on the side, too, yeah.
So it is a lot of work, but it's all well worth it. That day when you see people come together and to celebrate Milford's history, culture, and so it's a pretty cool event. And we're going to continue to do it as long as we can, and the town allows us to do it. Thanks to you guys, and thanks to Rick and the police department, the auxiliary police, fire department go down the list, you know.
Yeah, our contribution is
Everyone's
very small. There's a lot of workers behind
Well,
this.
everyone's been very receptive to allowing us to pull it off, so.
And, you know, tonight, just as an example, you were here earlier, but, you know, we've talked about the Cub Scouts, we've talked about the Girl Scouts, we've talked about Arbor Day, we've talked about, you know, the Citizens from Milford Cleanup Day that's happening this Saturday. We've talked about so many things. If you think about all those volunteer hours and the amount of effort that goes into all of this, all good stuff, all generating, I think, a positive vibe about the community and making people, I think, you know, recognize that there are things they can participate in. There are 2-hour events or 5-hour events or 8-hour events with, and, you know, help out their community and make it a great place to live. And that's what we all are looking for.
And the word is getting out about this event, not just in our surrounding towns, but further out where people just have heard wonderful things about the town, the location, how it just brings people from all over, a wonderful, unique shopping experience where people just love to grab a bag and go around and just visit all the booths and just to talk to people. So I think it's just great.
That's what I was going to say, but Joe made reference, this is the 4th year. It's amazing the number of people it draws.
Yeah.
And your first year out of the gate, it was, you know, but this is your 4th year, and it's just amazing. And to your point, the people, not just from the community of Milford, the people from surrounding towns that come into the
States
community,
that are just
you know,
loving it, yeah.
you know, and get to see how tightly wrapped this community really is, very much so. Thank you. Thank you for all your effort.
Yeah, thank you for your contribution in helping us feel good about our community.
And Mr. Chairman or Rick, and maybe because we've been doing it for the last 4 years, but we've already approved their parades and we did the licenses and everything, right? So that's all done too? Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all set. So
Good to go.
thank you for the update, and hopefully we're all crossing our fingers for the right weather.
I know.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
So Kathy, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have Town Engineer here to speak to us about Cortlandt Street.
Thank you.
Take care, Kathy.
So while Mike is getting ready, our town engineer is getting ready, I'll preface the comments with regard to some drainage issues and concerns that people had been bringing forward. Will, you had asked that we bring somebody in, that we bring Mike in to discuss Cortlandt Street, and town engineer's here.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, if I can, and while Mike's setting up, if I can
Yeah.
just for historical purposes, I wasn't even necessarily, initially when Cortlandt Street came on my radar, it was because of a freezing cold day where water coming down Cortlandt Street onto Route 140 was freezing, and I saw a couple of cars slip. Unaware of any project or any work going on up the street within the neighborhood. So that's how, you know, I kind of came into this, and then it's kind of developed, and obviously we've all been educated on, you know, some of the issues that are going on in the neighborhood, not necessarily just at Cortlandt Street and 140, which was my concern.
I've actually been there, Mr. Chairman, and I've actually witnessed the water situation. Serious.
Yeah, I'm just trying to decipher how much is new and how much is old. I know that some of that ice has been there for, you know, repeatedly year after year, and it's just, you know, water's been bleeding out of that hill onto, what is it, Job Lot? Or
Well, here's Cortlandt, and then there's South Main Street, yeah, and Dollar Tree and
Dollar Tree, yeah.
over in this area here.
Okay.
Yeah, so as you had just mentioned, there's a parcel of land shown here that actually extends into the other town of.
Hopedale.
Hopedale.
This is the town line here. We have Cortlandt Street, South Main, and Diana Circle located here.
Okay.
Okay, so this parcel does abut, you can see the string of residential houses there. So summertime, fall of last year, 2018, was about 6.5, 7 acres of this land was cleared. Okay? As we can see now, it's a fairly challenging piece of land, very steep. So shortly coming out of the summer, you know, when all the leaves start to fall, things of that nature, there were a couple calls after rain events from a couple of the abutters. Number 10, Diana Circle, which is shown here and here. And number 47, Cortlandt Street, shown here. So on both of those occasions, once I received the call, I went out to the site, I went out to the rear rear yard of number 10 and witnessed, and that's all in my memo that I submitted to Rick. I did that on my own a couple, a week or so, or 2 weeks ago. And what I found is that there's naturally occurring swale here that's coming down off of this area in Hopedale and this hill here. It drains towards number 10. Let's see, most of this land, as you can see, is just all draining in this direction. I do not see any prominent swale, naturally occurring swale that heads right to 47, but, those are my findings in terms of how the water's draining.
Now, on these properties, Mike, it sounded like you made reference to existing and extensive drainage systems from prior years that were built into these properties?
Oh, yes, so yeah, in the research and in my memo, you can see the original, I included a couple sheets of the original design plan for Diana Estates, or whatever the technical
Yeah,
name
you
of that
mentioned
subdivision
manholes
was.
in the backyard
Yeah,
and
so,
different things that were happening.
so there's a string of catch basins, swales, and drain manholes along this northern boundary of the Locust property, or the southern portion of these lots. However, that's the high end of those lots. So typically, a developer wouldn't go in and put a bunch of drainage on the highest part of each lot unless they were aware of what was taking place. And in this case, I believe they knew of the water coming in this direction, obviously, from that hill. And it's not just because it's uphill, it's the conditions and the type of runoff, high runoff, et cetera, things of that nature. So they took that into account in the design of those. And what I had witnessed was the water coming down here, dumping into number 10 Diana Circle, but that's getting collected on the surface and drains down to a catch basin that's in the backyard, which then takes it down the property line and sends it down to the design detention basin.
Yeah, how long that's been there, roughly?
Oh, 80, I think the plans are like 1988 or something, I think, when they designed this, yes. And then just knowing that there's always been like a cart path cut in here over the years, and I believe that's where most of that water's coming from in Cortlandt Street there. Now, the second complaint came in from number 47. I went out to witness that. There was water dumping across their backyard, disturbing their pavers and pool area, things of that nature. So I also met Dave Pine, the landowner or manager. We walked up here, and what they did in about a day's time is to try to alleviate the drainage going towards 10, they excavated a trench in this direction, downhill, and then just stopped it there.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, suppose, they say number 47 says they've never had that happen to that extent. So I asked Dave to backfill that trench.
You
And
tell
I
me-
thought that alleviated the problem. And then 4 months later, which was just March 15th or something, I got another call on a Friday, or someone alerted me to the fact, and I went out there like 6:30 at night.
Can you tell me what the findings of fact are, or tell the board?
Yeah.
What your findings of fact are as it relates to, bylaws, zoning laws, conditions of site permits, or any of the other?
Sure, sure, when the complaints or the inquiries first started to come in, I started researching the property, also knowing some things about the property as it's been vacant for many years, and plenty of people have looked at it, so to speak, in terms of development. This hill does not have any wetlands on it because it's so steep. There's channelized flow, but there's no wetlands. So that's the first thing I took a look at to see if there was any jurisdictional clearing within the 100-foot buffer zone of a border and vegetated wetland within the town of Milford's jurisdiction. I concluded that there was not. Somewhere along the line, a complaint was put to DEP. I have the date, but they sent us the complaint. I contacted the wetlands chief, who contacted me. They looked into it. I followed up with them, and obviously, I believe they found the same, because I think they would have notified us to have the applicant file with the local.
Okay.
In terms of zoning, all they did was clear the trees, so that doesn't violate any zoning that I'm aware of. And I've basically I've suggested that they may be able to get together with the landowner and see what they can, up in this area, there is it's an easy solution for me, is that they could connect a pipe to the existing drainage system here coming from this property, but maybe that's not as easy as I think it is, or for the two parties to get together.
Yeah, go ahead and have a seat. We'll have a conversation for a minute.
I had mentioned to them that it's pretty much a similar.
Yeah, very well-written report, by the way. It made it easy for me to understand And I'm not a engineer, and I'm not a wetlands expert, or drainage expert for that matter. I'll ask the members if they have any questions. I'll go to you, Mike. Go ahead.
I actually do, Mike. So one of the questions I have for you, I've personally been out to 47 Cortland.
Yeah.
Saw the water coming down the hill, over their fire pit, down the wall by their pool, and took out their entire side lawn. So my first question is what could be done there to stop that from happening? And then my other question is, if there is drainage on Diana Circle, how are those people getting water in their backyards?
It's flowing, so I'll address number 47, I guess, first,
Please.
right? So number
Yes.
47. 47, as they had indicated, like you had witnessed, that it's going across their patio. Now, I don't think typically they would build a patio if that was happening, every spring or even every 2 years. That's just my take on it. I even witnessed, the stone dust material that you would build the patio with, displaced from the patios down near to the side of their house. So if something has taken place to change that, then they would just need to either fill that in, whether it be tire ruts, things of that nature, fill it in so it goes back to where it was going. Now, the second part of your question was, how is water entering their yards if there's drainage along here? Because the drainage was installed for this subdivision.
Okay.
This is the property line. So they could not put drainage on someone else's land, so they lined this area with drainage components. So it's by design. So the water's coming on the surface, and they knew that was coming. So that's why they put a swale, constructed a swale with all the catch basins back in 1988.
So what can we do with the landowner to help these residents with their water situation?
Yeah, like I says, up here, in my opinion, it's a fairly easy fix. We extend the drainage onto, if he's willing to do that, extend the drainage, a drainage pipe onto this here, in this direction, and do it, make a head wall and collect that water, and then instead of coming on the surface, it's just gonna dump into that pipe, and it's just managed in a different manner.
Okay.
But it's being managed now through a swale that was constructed through the original subdivision.
Okay, and how about Cortland? What could be done there?
Cortland, like I says, if in fact that water never came in that direction in that manner, they just need to, if it's tire ruts from the big skid steers, things of that nature, they just need to try to figure out what's causing that, and either fill in the tires, the tire ruts, things of that nature, and put it back to the way it was.
And have you followed up with Cortland since that Friday night that I was there in the afternoon and you?
No, I have not. Nope.
Okay.
No, following that, I wrote the memo just to bring everything together so everybody knew what I had found and the facts that, the facts for what has taken place up to that point.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Will?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. No, thank you, Mike. And as Bill said, everything was really well written, and I really appreciate that because, again, this being very far outside of my realm, it was
Yep.
actually very easy to understand. So I appreciate you writing it in layman's terms. Yeah, I got contacted by one of the neighbors, and I reached out because I know David Pine's one of the partners, and he seems to be the spokesperson or who I was told to reach out to. So I did reach out to David. Made himself available to me. We talked about a lot of these different things, all because, again, I started with the concern of the water going down Cortlandt Street and freezing at 140, and I just happened to be driving down 140, and someone attempted to brake at the end of Cortlandt Street, and it wasn't successful. So
Yep.
we almost had a close one there. So that's how my concern started, with more like, do we need to add drainage or something actually on Cortlandt Street because it was flowing down into 140. And then with one of the residents, I became aware of, the water issue. So, and I feel bad for the residents. I think this is also a perfect storm. I mean, we've had like 36 inches above our average of rain. And then whatever project or whatever has changed, because I was told about the drainage that they had as designed, as you dated back to the 1980s. So when I talked to one of the residents, I let her know that I'm not sure there's anything that the town can do, because I wasn't even sure that we had any jurisdiction in a case like this, and it's kind of come to find out that we probably don't.
Yep.
And that's what I was, probably don't. You kind of made that, very clear in your report. So I guess we just, is your recommendation, just for the folks watching stuff, is it, just the maybe your recommendations and the property owners on all three, just try to get together and do the best they can?
Well, I mean,
what he said,
the Cortland issue, I think I have a little blurb in there that's a public way.
Yeah.
The Cortland issue, not number 47, Cortland, where it's been, ice is up in Cortland, if,
That's not new, so that should be on the town, right?
yeah, I mean, if the town wanted to do that, that would be up to
And
the
I think
town.
that's what, I
That's
know I
not new.
talked to Rick about at one of the meetings, that
But,
see
you
if
know,
we can get
It'd
Scott.
be costly, there's a lot of ledge,
Yeah.
but.
Well, it's either that or we allow unsafe conditions to exist.
Yeah,
'Cause I don't want to necessarily seize opportunities because there's a developer within a few blocks to say, hey, this leaking pipe or this leaking, this water that leaches out has caused a icing problem for years. Now we want to blame you because you have equipment nearby. That water's been coming out of that area in front of Dollar Tree for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, under a scenario for development usually comes in with a plan.
Yeah.
And usually if there's they submit a plan, that's what the town looks out for and then says, improve this area. Unfortunately, that's how things are done sometimes. And then, so if there was a plan, a development plan put in place, then we would expand upon that. And then sometimes we ask the developers to improve some of the
And since
the adjacent
okay,
areas.
so they're pretty much doing a land clearing just to possibly make it more attractive for a developer to decide what to put there?
I
Because there's no
presume.
project?
I assume.
Okay.
Looking at those slopes, in my opinion, that's about the only thing you can do is first you gotta tackle it and bring it down, but.
I know years ago, isn't this the same piece of property that they wanted to do a grocery store on at one point?
Years ago, it was a whole bunch of it put together, and they were gonna try to do a rezone and combined with
Oh, 'cause it was Hopedale too,
Big
that's
Y,
right,
yeah.
okay.
They're gonna fix the intersection and a whole lot of things.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike.
So that would be, so that would be a perfect example, someone like that trying to put a big Y in there, we'd say, listen, you have to redo this whole Cortland Street, it wasn't even just drainage.
Yeah, they would have to break
They
it
were-
all up
They were
anyway.
gonna realign it and square it off and align it with the driveway across the street and make it all 90, and that's,
Mike, you had to.
Just a question, and actually, the residents at 47 Cortland told me that because it was a land clearing and not for development, they didn't have to come under the same criteria as it was being developed.
yeah, there's no permit to develop. I think I'm pretty sure there was a permit that was sent to ZBA for earth removal, but that doesn't really come across my desk. I wasn't really involved with that, and then I believe they withdrew it. I'm pretty sure they withdrew it.
Okay.
So it's pretty
That's
much
where you
just a
start, that's where you
landowner
start conditions,
cutting their own trees
Yeah.
down.
Yes, that's where you start, not imposing, but that's where you ask, impose conditions to
Yeah.
allow them to do earth removal, things of that nature. And then you would manage it with detention ponds, things of, just like in 1988 when they managed the runoff going onto their property.
Yeah. Okay.
And, well, Mr. Chairman, I just add, just going back to the drainage issue, can we get some follow-up, whether that's from your office or Rick, through Scotty, about actually, is there anything we can do to Cortland Street to stop the flow of the water onto 140, which I know is a state road, but I don't know if we're actually need to do anything on 140. It's obviously going from a high point to a low point, so the water's only gonna come one direction. So I don't know if additional drainage is even possible. Again, this isn't my expertise, but.
There's probably a couple sections of pipe that you could put in Cortland, run it towards the problem area and put some catch basins or drop inlets or something to that effect. If the water's breaking out of the slope closer to South Main, and if you might not be able to grab 100% of it, it still would be better than what's
happening now.
Because it's treacherous in the winter.
With that slope coming in. That road was probably there, well, it was there before Route 140, I think. And then they did the whole realignment.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike, appreciate you providing an update to this board. Are you going to be getting back to those homeowners now?
Like I
conclusion?
says, I've always left it that, it's more of a civil matter at this point. They're not violating anything. I've spent tens of hours out here and reports and research.
No, it's clear that you've done a lot of work on this.
And I'll do whatever I'll do whatever.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
whatever we
I
want-
thought I was done. I
whatever we
guess I
need to
could just
do.
say that this is a rare case, at least for the, the last 4 years that I've been on this board, that, we've had, and I appreciate you doing all of this work that you have and the tens of hours, and yet there's really, there doesn't appear to be anything that we can legally do
Right.
for any of the parties. So you referring them back, and that's what a couple of the neighbors that had come in, last meeting, pretty much said it's probably going to be something that they have to do privately.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, but
No, thank you,
if
Mike.
there's something you want me to do, I'll do it. If there's something I could do, I would
I'm
do.
not sure what you haven't done yet.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, next we have town administrator report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. 4 items tonight. One, I just want to alert that I've been informed by John Bonzo of Algonquin Gas Transmission that their company will be performing maintenance work at the Hopedale Meter Station at 124 South Main Street in Milford from April 29th through April 30th and May 2nd through May 3rd. The work does require that small amounts of odorized natural gas will be released intermittently. So the Algonquin wants to know the town, notify the town, should we get reports about residents or businesses smelling gas near the Algonquin facility. Personnel from Algonquin will be on site during the entire work, and all will be done in a safe manner. There may also be some noise associated with the work. During the maintenance activities, if people in the general vicinity smell the odorant and natural gas or hear the noise, they assure us there'll be no danger to persons or property in the area. We have notified local police and fire, and they were briefed about the maintenance activities, as will nearby residents or businesses. Also, in case of need, first responders will be notified shortly before and at the conclusion of the controlled release of the natural gas so that they can respond to any calls which they might receive. They just assure us it's a planned, controlled release which does not pose a safety risk to the public. The second item, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to alert the board that Jen Ward, Youth Center Director, has informed me that their 9th annual St. Patrick's fundraiser held at Craft Roots Brewery was a huge success and raised $8,750 for youth center programs.
Great.
At the event, Community Association Awards were presented to Benjamin Moore and Milford TV for their years of dedication and support of the youth center. The third item is just an update on the downtown facade program. The subcommittee for the Downtown Revitalization Committee is continuing to review applications for the facade program. There are approximately 3 to 5 still in the pipeline, and we did receive 2 new ones to be reviewed. They will be reviewing them on a rolling basis. In order to approve, the subcommittee is looking to make sure they have cost estimates, architect renderings, and the required payment by the property owner. As the board knows, we are running into a little bit of a time crunch, so any way we could streamline the process would be most appreciated. And finally, I do want to update the board and make a recommendation as to an administrative assistant to the town administrator. This position was advertised on the town website as well as on Indeed. We received 303 applications for the position. I, along with Maureen Giffen, HR Director, reviewed the resumes and selected the top 26 for further review. 13 of these candidates were then selected for a phone screen, and 10 were brought in for in-person interviews. We then narrowed the search to 4 candidates. Each of the candidates, we believe, had solid clerical and skills and knowledge. After careful consideration, I am recommending Maria Helena Perez for the position. She has held administrative positions in a variety of industries that we feel have given her a breadth of skill and experience. She has solid computer skills and is confident in her ability to quickly assimilate in this new role. Her professionalism and demeanor during the interview processes indicate she is well-suited for the position. In addition, she is fluent in Portuguese and has a solid understanding of the Spanish language, which we believe will add another benefit to the town as the selected candidate. If the board were to approve this recommendation, I would request that she be placed at Level 1, Step 1 under Article 2 with a starting hourly rate of $21.69. I would also ask that she be allowed to begin work as early as next Monday, April 29th. And that's all I have tonight, Mr. Chairman.
All right, that's a lot. So with that said, there are 4 different items that Rick brought up. I'd like to pull off, for the sake of discussion, the administrative assistant. Is there any questions or comments related to the gas work, and I'm going to guess the facade program?
No?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a recommendation as it relates to the facade program in order to let the team quickly adapt to the time-sensitive nature and expenditure of a grant. I'd like the board to consider, Rick, you mentioned there were 3 things, and it included architectural rendering, it included a
We want a
plan.
solid cost estimate, architectural renderings that have been agreed upon by the subcommittee and the applicant. And as always, we also would need the required payment by the property owner of their 25% to be contributed toward the program. The ones that you have approved already have met those
Yep.
qualifications. The money is actually in town possession, and so those are obviously going forward. Again, we do have a little bit of a time crunch, as the board knows, as to the use of the money.
Well, what I'd like to recommend, to see if board members agree with me, is if, provided that they meet the cost estimates, have the rendering, have already agreed and had review with the downtown revitalization, and have a payment via check or whatever, some type of payment to meet the financial requirements, what I'd like to do is see if we can have Rick approve for us on behalf of the committee, so we don't cost that committee time on the approval and turnover.
I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Plus, we know we're under a time crunch.
All right, so if I could have a motion, the costs, renderings, and payment are received, costs are understood, renderings are available, and payments have been received.
So moved.
Okay.
I would second that.
Authorize Rick to sign on behalf of the board.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you.
hopefully that helps, Rick. Let me know if you need anything else. With respect to the administrative assistant, you heard the process that the town administrator and the HR director went through. Are there any questions, comments, concerns?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to add that I think the team did a lot of work, especially receiving 303 applications, and I'm going to wholeheartedly support the appointment of Maria Perez. I don't know if there's any other comments, but I'll gladly make a motion if there are not.
Before I second that, Rick, I just want to say that just another example of what we're doing in this community. 300 and some odd applications, narrowed it down to 13, narrowed it down to 4. But I honestly have to say that, and I know that we're the appointing authority, but you and Maureen have done all the legwork. And if this is the person that you're recommending, I would second that motion as well.
Then just allow me, I'll make a motion that we appoint Maria Helena Perez to administrative assistant to the town administrator at level 1, step 1 under Article 2, at starting rate of $21.69.
And I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
And Rick, just not that you need more confirmation, but I also received calls standing up for this candidate, speaking for their character. So it would have been one of the ones I would have put ranked high as well.
Thank
So-
you. I do want to thank Maureen. She did yeoman's work on this. She did
Sure she
most
did.
of the initial screening.
Sure she did.
So with that, I'd like to make that approval of the hiring of Maria Helena Perez unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I'd like to discuss town engineer. Mike, we just should have called you up right after your
I
Cortlandt
apologize,
Street.
Mike. I should have thought of that.
I didn't
Next time you
realize-
can demand it.
Yeah.
No problem.
Come on up. First of all, I want to go to the disposition of the board before we talk further about anything. Come on, have a seat. At least let you sit down. Is there any interest by the members of the board to move on property that's been dispositioned as surplus and entertain a offer that's been given to the town of Milford?
Personally, Mr. Chairman, I'd like, and Mike, in the last meeting, if you could take some time and explain exactly the terminology of watershed and how this land impacts the water, in the town of Milford.
Okay. Just start by putting a couple maps up there just for reference.
While Mike's doing that, I'm going to read from a letter from Reno DeLuzio, who was a former town planner. Dear board members, this is communication we received, April 16th. When I learned of these 4 lots being proposed for sale, it triggered 3 of my longstanding concerns. So I attended a planning board and conservation meetings that addressed the sale of these lots and expressed my concerns. We can all agree the lots are located in the Upper Charles River watershed and therefore require special consideration. My first concern is that the sale of these 4 landlocked properties and perhaps unbuildable lots may send a signal that other town lands within the watershed could be proposed for sale. My second concern is that the preservation of as much of the watershed as possible in a natural state to protect the quality and water of the town's water supply. We already have a stressed water supply, and additional stress would be applied to private development on the land, builds on the land the town does not own. Proactively adding to this stress by the sale of these lots would not only, when the apparent benefit is tax revenue, is not advisable. And I don't want to continue reading because Mike is ready, but the former town planner states in his closing, for these reasons I've cited above, the fact that the statute allows selectmen to sell land acquired by land, is that we should seriously consider retaining ownership of these parcels, and that, that we look to maintain property within the Charles River watershed by whatever means acquired may be approved by town meeting. Okay. So he's suggesting some due care be provided for that land.
Yeah, so just a quick recap. I haven't been too involved with this in front of the selectmen in terms of these 2 parcels that are remaining that have seemed to, there's been quite a bit of discussion pertaining to the 2 parcels. The 2 parcels are referred to as Cedar Street, shown here, parcel 16-0-2. And then there's another parcel, RARA 495, it's referenced to, parcel 29-0-0-4, and that's located right here, okay? This is just a different map of that. That's a little more messy with a bunch of handwriting that actually labels some of the things, pulls out the hatching, and actually labels them, okay? So these 2 parcels are associated with all this color on the map, which are surface water protection zones. And those are set up by DEP. What they do is they know where there's public water supply wells and so there are different categories. You have Echo Lake shown further up. Now that's a surface water supply. That water is on the surface, and that's a surface water supply. That's collected, put into conduit or pipe, and then it's brought down into the water treatment plant. And then you have wells that are drilled in the ground, shown right here, in public water supply wells along North Pond and the beginning, the north portion of, not North Pond, I'm sorry, Milford Pond. The north part of Milford Pond, there are some public supply wells that are drilled there. So they analyze that, and then they go out, all the tributaries to that, they designate them as surface water protection zones for that reason, because all that area contributes to those wells, okay? So, there was a question asked, are these important to the watershed? Well, they're part of it. I know one's right at the cutoff, so that could probably spur some debate or discussion as to it being right on the edge of the water surface protection zone. But that gets a little tricky too, and I don't know if I want it. I'll go there if we need to, but once, there's a massive relief here of like 73 feet. I took a look at the topography. So no matter what happens to that property, you're right on the line where the state has established all this water feeding down into this direction. Charles River feeds these wells that are drinking water supplies for the town of Milford. So now, if you're right on the edge of that, and you start taking 30, 40, 50 feet, essentially you have lowered that. And topography does dictate some of these, establishes some of the limits of these lines, because water doesn't flow uphill. So if you have the topog, and so the Charles River is typically the low point in this area. So everything's feeding down to that. So if you're right on the cusp, and then now you take 50 feet, there's 73 feet. The topo maps are in my memos. So you start blasting 40, 50 feet, you're going to change that topography right on the edge. So that gets tricky too, as if you're going to stop pulling and send it into a different basin. Although it's right on the edge, you think, you would normally, your instinct is like, well, it's right on the edge. It probably doesn't, it's not as important as something that in the center. But you're right on the edge that they've established that. You blow out 40, 50 feet of ledge or whatever is there. It's probably ledge. But you blow that out, now what have you done? And there's a large wetland right here that breaks out this way. And this whole area is part of the Charles River watershed in general, just not part of Milford. This all drains out in this direction, heads south, collects back up in the Charles River down in, the areas of Medway, Bellingham, Stallbrook, which starts in Milford.
Just a question, Mike, and thank you for putting this presentation together, but if it's rock, how does water flow through it?
Well, it's all the water on the surface as well.
Okay.
So all this water that we're talking about only comes from precipitation. That's where the generator is. So then what happens after it lands on the ground is it's gonna run off, it's gonna infiltrate, it's gonna contribute to your groundwater, your perch groundwater tables, things of that nature.
Okay.
Like today, when I walked out there, I'm walking up the cart paths, and typically when someone puts a cart path through steep land, they start to cut it out, cut that path out to make it flatter so you can drive a vehicle. And I even took a couple pictures where it's just, groundwater's just breaking out. And then I don't think we need to get into the porosity of ledge, and I don't even know if I could explain that at the detail that it should be explained. That's all hydrogeologists really get into that, and that's who establishes these. This public water supply well, you can see the radius, that's a half mile from the public water supply well, that's what the state establishes, the maximum, and it's like, I don't know, drawdown for 180 days with no precipitation or something to that effect. But you can clearly see all these colors mean something, and they all drain down into there. So those two parcels and then it's, if the two are gone, what else is coming? And that's all speculation, so I don't, I'm just here to say the topography is really steep here, 73 feet, 30 feet of difference across this small parcel. They're only 1.4 acres each. Yeah. You could try to ratio that out of, a 200-acre watershed. Does it really matter? I understand that people might not think it's that important, but it's clearly very, very important to the whole picture. It really is, in my opinion, anyways.
Okay. Well, that's what we asked you here for.
Yeah.
You're the expert.
Right. I've not walked the land, you've walked the land. So.
I only walked to the one where 495, and then the rain was coming in, but that was the more important one to me anyways, because I wanted to look at a couple other things with that wetland.
All right, so any other questions? One of the challenges we have, and the reason why this is even here, is we have an offer on the table from a developer for those parcels, and we've not responded. So I want to give a definitive response. I want to be able to move on. So whatever it is that the board is thinking, I'd like to see if there's a motion out there, either to continue going forward. We've heard from committees, we've heard from Planning Board, we've heard from the Conservation Commission. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we deny the offer and the overall sale of this surplus property. As I said 2 weeks ago, I couldn't support this sale because the Planning Board, the Concom, both unanimously voted and asked against this potential sale, as well as our current town planner and our former town planner. So.
Okay, Mike?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mike, I want to say thank you for coming in and explaining that. To Selectman Kincaid's point, the planning board voted unanimously to deny this sale. COMCOM voted to deny this sale. I just needed more information on, what the actual watershed, looking at it and have it explained to me. So that being said, having a much better understanding of it and listening to you is, it's your expertise. As the chairman said, we don't walk the land, you walk the land. and I know where you stand on it. So, Mr. Chairman, I would second that motion to not sell the land.
Yeah, I just want to make clear that, this could involve 7 different types of engineering studies at different specialists. What we've got is we have a town engineer for which we pay to advise us, that gives us his opinion. His opinion based on his experience, his education, and a whole lot of other things, and talking with other people about the land, is an opinion. And so while I appreciate that and I respect that opinion, I'd like to make that unanimous and move on. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
And I apologize for making you sit there.
Oh, no problem.
If I was paying attention, I would have stayed with you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
All right. So that closes on that. Next, I'd like to open up a discussion regarding interim police chief. We're talking about, having gone through a process, I'd like to hear from the members and get their collective thoughts on process and how we ought to begin, making sure we're prepared for having a police chief on or about July 1st. So with that,
No, Mr. Chairman, with, I think time, as May quickly approaches, and I think time is of the essence, and we've had a lot of stalls in the whole process since last year. And I know that the search committee is underway, but that's only one spoke in this whole wheel of this process. So when the subject of an interim chief came up, I personally was thinking who could best serve in this position as both a trusted leader and experienced police officer. And I don't think we had to look very far. Here in Milford, we always have resources and expertise and people willing to serve, and this case is no different. Michael Paghetti was a member of the Milford Police Department from 1983 to 2013. Michael served as a patrolman, a sergeant, a lieutenant, and he was the last person to serve as an interim chief, and that was between 2001 and 2002. He has served as an instructor of criminal justice and police sciences at the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council, Dean College, Western New England College. Mike was appointed as interim chief by the Board of Selectmen in 2001. He managed and commanded 44 full-time officers, dispatchers, and the administrative support staff. He administered the budget and all organizational functions of the department. He commanded the investigative services, internal affairs, patrol services, and coordinated all of the training for the department. As a retiree, Mike is limited by what he can earn. I have rehired many retirees in my tenure working for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and as long as those regulations are followed, which is very easy to do, he is highly qualified and able to serve. To his credit, his willingness to serve his town for other reasons other than financial is a win-win, both for this board and for the town, but also for a proud Milfordian, for Mike, like Mike. And when he came to mind, I reached out to him just as a single member of the board, and he was very interested, and I continued to talk to him as this process went through. I talked to him about the timeline being short and us looking for someone, and I think it's very important that he is an insider, so to speak. Even though he's been retired for 6 years, he certainly knows the building, many of the officers are new. But I think also coming in from the outside also gives a fresh perspective, which is very important. So that's how, that's where I'd like to see us go. He's a known entity to the entire board and quite honestly to much of the town. And I guess I would just like to know your thoughts, and I will make a motion tonight, but I'm interested in hearing your thoughts.
okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll go to Mike and get Mike's thoughts and see where Mike was going. I was hoping to go through some of the process. And it sounds like we have each maybe gone through, I've thought about what the process might be, but each of us have their own process in mind. That's why I wanted to reach out tonight, put this on the agenda.
Well, I think what's interesting, Mr. Chairman, is, and I reference back to when we went to replace the superintendent of schools, and I said to the school committee at the time I was chairman that, we're going to have to set up a national search, and that we're going to have to set up, a committee and a process. And I was talking at the time to town council Jerry Moody, and he just said to me, it wasn't even about that. I had called him about something with the school committee, and he said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Do you think that you have anybody in the district that can run the district?" And I said, "Absolutely, Dr. McIntyre." He said, "Then appoint him." He said, "The reason you make assistant superintendent of schools, deputy fire chiefs, deputy police chiefs, is so that those people train under the current superintendent or the current chief, and they learn their management skills, and that's why you create those positions." So in my opinion, as one selectman, I think the interim chief should be the deputy chief of police, Jimmy Valvey. That's why we created that position.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I've asked. That's why I wanted to reach out to the board members. I didn't know what collective thoughts, whether you had a process in mind or whether you wanted to skip process and appoint somebody that was known to you. That's why I wanted to reach out to the
And if I may read, I did a little bit of research, and if it's okay with you, if I could read something?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't believe that the individual that is being proposed to serve as interim police chief can do so legally at this time. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. You had this prepared before the proposal?
I heard talk on the street.
Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead.
In accordance with Code of Massachusetts regulations, and in particular 550 CMR, training requirements follows. And basically what this says is he has to complete the police academy before he can serve as a police official, because he's been retired since 2013. And I think that's something we need to look into.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. What I'd like to do is, it looks like each of you have a member that you have in mind. I obviously want to vet any conditions. Do either of you have any thoughts about conditions that the person's not applying for police chief is applying for police chief? Is it irregardless, or regardless of whether they're applying for a police chief or not? Because each one has their own benefits, so. You have any thoughts?
I still think that we should elevate the deputy police chief to be the interim.
And would that be independent of whether he chose to go for chief of police or not?
Even if he did.
Okay. No, I'm just asking. I'm just getting qualifying.
He's the deputy chief of police. He should be elevated to be the interim chief, in my opinion.
All right.
Sure, and Mr. Chairman, where I'm different, it certainly has nothing to do with the individual that Mike is bringing up. I know Jim well, I know, and have for years. But I also saw 17 years ago when someone who might have been interested for the job went for interim chief. It's not a successful place to put a person in who's thinking of going for the job or even possibly going for the job. So if this is going to be tabled to the next meeting, that's fine. I don't know, Mike cited some type of legal statute. I'm not aware, especially since he already served as a interim police chief. That kind of puzzles me. I don't know if that's an answer that we know, but I certainly think that I'm certainly thinking that we get the best of both worlds. We have, with Mike Paggetti, we have someone who already served as an interim chief, has budget experience, has everything you need to, because he's done it before. And he's a Milford guy, he's local, and he's willing to serve. I think that goes a long way. So I definitely want to find out what all of those, options or stipulations are.
Okay. Why don't we do this? Because, there are a lot of benefits to having a person that's known to us. So I'm going to agree with both of you. I don't mean to be, Switzerland in this process, but I'm going to agree with both of you that I too would like to have somebody from the very local area, somebody that's known to the community, somebody that knows the community. I like the idea of somebody who's, by the way, I just want to say, somebody who's not necessarily interested in seeking to be chief to become interim. There's benefits and there's drawbacks to that. But that said, why don't you provide your information to town council? We can take it up at the next meeting, and because I think you both have very solid positions, it looks like I'm going to have to either break that tie or vet this process a little bit further. I actually thought tonight we might be talking more about the process than we are about the appointments, but each of you came prepared with comments, so I appreciate that for you guys thinking that through. So if you could provide your information to council, and if there are any questions we have about, one of the things I'd like to ask town council, Rick, is if we have the ability to restrict applicants who are interested in applying for interim to not be an applicant for the chief, if that's possible, that's even possible. Because I know some towns have done that, where they'll look for an interim and they just say, hey, provided you're not a candidate, because we're not trying to give anybody a leg up in this process. So I do want to remain a little neutral in that process, because I want to be mindful of all of the officers and command staff that have worked hard and prepared, for eventuality of someday becoming chief. So if we could check that, we could provide the information that Mike's provided, we can vet that with town council. And then, I think we have, my sense is that between the two candidates, we have time, and there may be other candidates that emerge as well that we want to think of. I'd like to investigate other candidates as well, so I want to ask around. I'll be asking around and talking with various people, see if I can gain some more information as well.
Okay.
All right?
Yep.
All right, so let's see what's legal, what's not legal, and run it by town council. Is that amenable to you?
Sure, absolutely.
I know there have been questions about town council's opinion in the past.
Oh, yeah,
I just want to
because
make sure.
to be honest with you, if I have to make a motion, I certainly will, but I want to I want to find the requirements for hiring a retiree. 'Cause
Okay.
again, this is an administrative position.
Yeah, let's do that.
And he already served there, so.
All right, so let's set that directive and work with town council based on Will's recommendation that we identify any restrictions, prohibitions, guidelines that exist or
To be honest with you,
laws.
The town council's here, even if he doesn't know, I'd like to hear from him.
All right, yeah, why don't we do that? I'm going to pull you in ad hoc, I apologize. We seem to be navigating a minefield of questions.
Do you need to see this, Charles?
No,
Okay. Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Anything that you'd like to talk about in terms of that you're capable, that you feel comfortable talking about right now?
I'm not
or-
familiar with the section of the Code of Mass Regulations
Okay.
that,
Yeah, we don't expect you to have everything at the
that
top of
this-
your head.
yeah, so I'm going to have to take a look at that and see
Sure.
what it says and see whether it's applicable. With respect to, can you restrict interim? I mean, it's your appointment, so
Okay.
you can certainly put whatever restrictions are on it, but obviously, if you have somebody that you appoint, you can't restrict that person from then applying. You can, my point is this, is cart before the horse issue. You can make whatever restrictions you would like on your appointment, but the process for soliciting applications is within the purview of the
appointing
selections
authority.
committee, so therefore you can't tell them not to do
Please
that.
don't consider, yeah.
Correct. So
Okay.
all I'm saying is that your appointment is your appointment. You are in charge of what restrictions you would want to make. That selection, you can't then, so you can say to your potential candidate,
Please don't apply if you're going to do this.
if you're interested, we don't want you as the interim, so you need to, at least
Yeah.
disclose that to
Yeah.
us in this process, even if
Okay.
it's done, confidentially.
Yeah, well, that's, that horse left the barn, so. Okay, so we'll give you the information, and we'll ask you to pull something together. Now that there are names out there, what I'd like to do is approach this as quick as reasonably possible. I don't expect it to be your highest priority, but within the next few days, maybe we can call a meeting and pull something together and dispense with this because I don't want to let this linger, and I don't want this to be the opportunity for Facebook to backlash on either the existing deputy chief or the former interim chief that was selected by previous selectmen to be interim some years ago. So, yeah, I don't want this to linger long if we can avoid that.
Okay.
All right?
Well, with that, Mike, can I see what you referenced?
There's going to be a copy of that in the minutes of the meeting, I'm assuming?
Can you provide one for the minutes? Okay, great.
Yeah, going to have one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to take a
Yeah,
look at
'cause
that.
there's some detail. All right. Mike, anything else?
No.
On this topic? Well, anything else on this
No,
topic?
I just want to get clarification on this from town council, and then
Okay.
we'll go from there.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to jump to the next item on the agenda, the town administrator evaluation. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it. Administrator, first day with my new tongue, evaluation. So I want to just say that, I thought this would be done in March. It wasn't, so what we'll do is based on the town administrator's memo out to everyone, if everybody could, in the next week, get me soft copy evaluations of the town administrator. I'll compile those, bring them together, and then I'd like to report on it in the next meeting, if that works for you guys.
Yep.
I don't know what you have going in your personal schedule. I know you got a lot happening at work, both of you, as do I, but let's see if we can close out on this in the next 2 weeks, if that works for you. All right. Next, we have St. Mary's Parish of Assumption, with many one-day licenses and permits to obstruct. So I'm going to go through these. For the sake of time, I'm going to go through all of them. If one of the members would like to pull one of them out, I'm happy to do so. But I'll do a lot of reading for the first few minutes. St. Mary's of Assumption Parish would like to permit to obstruct, and they would like to block Winter Street between Granite and Main Street, which they've done several times in the past. We're talking about the first request being June 1st, 2019, from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. And that is signed by Reverend Matthias Sousa, representing St. Mary's of Assumption. The next request is another permit to obstruct, and it is for the same street, Granite Street. Let's see, Sumner, Maine, Pearl. No, I'm sorry, this is different streets. This goes all the way around the block. This is for a 1-hour procession around St. Mary's Parish. And this is, again, May 12th from 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. for a 1-hour time. Okay, hopefully I didn't mess that up too much, and you folks still understand it with what you have in front of you. Next is an application for a one-day license. And it's for May 11th, 2019, from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. And it's for the St. Mary's Parish Hall. And it's a fundraiser for the parish for St. Mary's of Assumption. I also have another one-day license. And this is for another fundraiser for the parish, June 1st, 2019. And again, at the 17 Winter Street location. And it's from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. The applications are in front of you. All of the alcohol licenses are one day and are for wine and malt only. And again, if there's not any questions or somebody would like to pull out something individually, what I'd like to do is bundle all of the requests, and feel free to break one out if you so choose. I was just trying to be
No, I'll
faster.
make a motion to support all of them as listed. Rick, did you you have all the dates?
I'm good. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I'm fine. Yep.
So I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'd also make that unanimous. Outstanding. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, we have a police department gift acceptance that we're being asked to approve is from Benjamin Moore, and it says, we greatly appreciate the service of the Milford Police Department provides to the community, and pleased to donate the department the enclosed first responder donation of $2,500. That's from Scott Kaplan, and that's Distribution Center Manager for Benjamin Moore at our very own 49 Sumner Street in Milford, Mass.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll vote to approve as well. That's unanimous. And as always, we will get them out a letter.
Yes.
Next, we have a letter from the police chief, and it's in response to a Ms. Barbara Savage to place no parking here to the corner, sign posted on Water Street at the intersection with South High, and he believes the sign is warranted for the following reasons. Enforcement and ticketing of vehicles has not had the desired result. The people not parking their vehicles too close to the crosswalk and the intersection is evidenced by the fact that an officer ticketed the vehicle in the photograph within the Savage email. Number 2, parking of vehicles at a location diminishes the line of sight for the vehicles entering Water Street and High Street. Number 3, parking of the vehicles at this location diminishes the line of sight traveling along Water Street. Thus, they can't see the vehicle coming from South High Street. 4th, Water Street is a heavy traffic roadway and the area is thickly settled. And 5, there was a fatality of a young child at this location who was struck by a vehicle. So with that said, I'd like to see the pleasure of the board.
I'll vote to accept the police chief's recommendation for a no parking here to corner at Water Street at South High.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
Also, I also would agree and make that unanimous. To the members, I'm sorry, I jumped from old business to new business. Do the members have any old business they'd like to bring up?
I don't, Mr. Chairman.
I don't.
Okay, any new business the members would like to bring up?
I don't.
I do.
Okay. Go ahead, Will.
No, I just wanted to let you know that as the Selectmen's liaison to the MWRTA, I attended our monthly meeting today. Ed Carr, who's the longtime administrator, who we all know, just received another 3-year contract. It's probably going to be his last one that he talked about, but we thought the last contract 3 years ago probably was going to be the last, but he's agreed to hold on, and we've incentivized him to stay on as the regional administrator. So that's good, I think, for the town of Milford and the whole MWRTA as a whole. So that he's had, with the exception of 1 year, he's had double-digit increases in ridership under his tenure. And this past year was an 11% increase in ridership, hopefully with a little help from our little bus route here in Milford. So
Yeah.
things are looking good. The new facility is up and running and has been, and the solar panels have all been installed. It's a great facility. When you're in Framingham next, it's worth taking a ride through and saying hello. But I just wanted to congratulate Ed on another contract for the next 3 years.
Okay, I've had the opportunity to meet Ed Carr, and I find him to be a stand-up person, highly regarded within his business of transportation. And I thought a lot of him in the short time that I had to work with him, and I got to know him. So he's a person I respect, and I'm glad to see he's staying another 3 years. Mike, anything from you?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So old business and new business have been concluded. We have correspondence with the Historical Commission regarding appointment. And Rick, before I read from the letter, which each of the members have had in their packet, I just want to ask, when's the appointments coming due next?
It'd be the end of the year, the June appointments, as always.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so commissioners seeking reappointments, the second bullet, I think we ought to table till June.
Oh, yeah, I was looking just if the board could just respond to the first bullet.
Oh, okay.
I agree 100%. That's all I was looking for.
All right, so.
Summary, yeah.
So now I've kept people who are watching in suspicion, so in suspense, rather.
I agree. I don't think we need to do those.
Yeah, okay, because they would come up at the normal course of our, and I don't want to
First
get
one.
people out of cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that tends to create its own problems.
Agreed,
But
yep.
the Milford, we received a letter from the Historical Commission to the Milford Selectmen and Town Administrator regarding appointments and keys. And it's dated April 11th, 2019. The commissioners and the associate commissioners of the Historical Commission unanimously request the Board of Selectmen to act on the following items. Due to the passing of our devoted and dedicated longtime Commissioner, Marilyn M. Lovell, the Commissioners request the Board of Selectmen appoint Associate Commissioner Stephen E. Zaloga to fill the unexpired term. He has been serving as Associate Commissioner for many years. So we can do that without further ado. I think we have to count votes with the Historical Commission, but I think we can make this appointment tonight, though,
Yes.
still, because they've made the request.
Yes.
All right, so I'd ask that the board act on that first request.
I'll make a motion to appoint Associate Commissioner Stephen E. Zalaga to fill the unexpired term of the late Marilyn M. Lovell.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
I would also make that unanimous. And then the Commissioners, Historical Commission seeks to appoint two individuals who term expires June 30th, 2019. I've just confirmed that we'll be making all of our appointments before then. So we don't want to make appointments, here and there. We want to do them in one fell swoop. I don't see any issues, but I'll defer to the board. And then the transfer of keys to Anne LaMontagne, a secretary. These keys were held by Marilyn Lovell, secretary. I don't think there's any action required.
Just more informational, I
It's
think,
just-
for the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you have what you need?
I do.
Okay, very good.
Thank
Is there any other correspondence from the board members would like to refer to?
I don't.
Okay. All right. So with that said, we have executive session to cover the topic of Milford permanent firefighters and their collective bargaining. I'll ask for a motion to go into executive session for that purpose.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for collective bargaining with the Firefighter Association.
I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I'd also ask that the members give a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Next, I'd like to inform the community that we will not be returning to open session following the collective bargaining discussion. And I'll take a motion to adjourn regular session.
So moved.
And I would second that, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and that's unanimous. All right, thank you and good evening.